watching McNabb, and he watched Mike Vick come back from
Yeah.
jail.
Oh, that timeline was crazy. I remember I was growing up through that. That was wild.
Yep.
How's it going, guys? Sorry for being late.
No worries.
Oh, you're good.
Literally just did basically a 1.5 mile sprint from Broadway straight home, so that was fun.
Nice.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Sorry, just cooling down for just a second. Dear God. But I hear McNabb.
Yeah, we were talking about the Eagles.
I thought we were talking about the Vikings string of picking up washed-up quarterbacks after their prime, but you know.
No, or not, and them losing to the Lions.
Oh,
That was pretty funny.
you can say that again. Hold on, I'm just making sure. Pop out Discord. There we
Oh
go.
my gosh.
So, if there's anything you specifically want to talk about, by all means, let us know. We can absolutely go on that tangent by any means.
I don't have any specific topic I wanted to cover, but anything about my coaching either last split or plans for the coming year, whatever, would be more ideal than not.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's definitely got a few things lined up on that. And just so you know, all this is live on YouTube. Not sure if just wanted to make sure that's up front because I forgot to mention that to Jordan until afterwards.
No.
And it was like, oh yeah, we're live, by the way.
Yeah, no worries.
But
I figured it was live to a certain degree on something, given it's a podcast.
So I'll just kick it off, and then I guess we'll just get everything underway. Welcome, everybody, to the Crossover Podcast. I think episode 26 now? 25, 26? I don't know. I'm starting to lose track of the numbers as it begins to go up. But special guest today. Longtime fan for Paul, I know, and a very special guest for me is the first person ever, formerly from the Green Wall, OpTic Gaming. Whether the memory is fond or not is irrelevant. All that matters is that it happened. So, with that, we have Dardoch on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, man. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me.
Not gonna lie, thought this was a pipe dream for a long period of time. The reaction to figuring out that this is even possible is just kind of nuts. But so obviously the news is now out that you are now the assistant coach with Immortals for the upcoming split. Lock-in stage has been announced, so we are formally getting the ball rolling with the 2022 split. How are you feeling about it going into it? Are you excited for the role? Just general thoughts going into 2022.
Well, first and foremost, of course, I'm excited to rejoin Immortals. After the summer split we had, I got a lot of extremely positive feedback internally about how much I was helpful from the players and staff. So it was always in the back of my head the possibility of rejoining under the position of assistant coach. The stars would just have to kind of align for me. And as far as that's concerned, it was more so like roster. Like, do I want to coach this specific team of guys, and do I feel like we have the capability of going far with me as a coach? Do I feel like I can be of use to these guys? And we kept 3 of 5, so obviously it was an easy yes for me in that regard. And I felt like in the positions that we did change, we did make upgrades, undeniably so. So I do feel like our potential definitely expanded over the course of the off season, and yeah, just very excited to look to see what happens this year.
Yeah, that is awesome. Like, I am so excited to see you back. Like, just doing all that and coaching, and that role is awesome. And I was wondering, last week when we talked to Jordan, he let us know about your academy team possibly getting to go up to Ann Arbor to do games up there and events there, and possibly playing up there. How do you think that would affect a team's development with the super server, quote unquote, whatever, coming and practice being at a bit higher ping?
I'm not really sure, to be completely honest, given the super server is not out yet for people to use. So I'm not really sure how that is all even going to work, to be completely honest. We have a lot of internal information that can't be really disclosed that's given from Riot to us, so we know some details, but like I said, until it's actually out there and our players are consistently, well, a majority of the LCS players are consistently using it, and public players who are at that skill level, until that's really a set thing, I'm not really sure how it's going to affect practice, so to say. It's going to, in my opinion, I feel like Champions Queue is going to need to prove itself as a consistent point of practice for it to be incorporated in professional team schedules, if that makes sense, rather than it just be like a designated solo queue time like it is now.
Yeah. In terms of like scouting, whenever obviously you guys are midway through the year, you know, not only looking at your players, but just looking externally as well. Do you think a lot of that scouting is going to come from Champions Queue and some of the solutions there, or is it still going to be majority, you know, VOD reviews of games at a professional level, or will, like, I guess the better way of saying that is, like, is there going to be more stock that's given to watching normal gameplay footage versus professional gameplay, or is Champions Queue really, in your eyes, does that not change it all that much?
From my perspective, Champions Queue is another avenue for like the unproven player to kind of get their name out there. You know, if you're at the top of Challengers Queue or Champions Queue and you're just like you are now, if you're at the very, very high end of solo queue, you're going to get those academy offers or those amateur offers, people that are interested in you in that capacity. I think that's more so what it's going to serve for. Historically speaking, it's always kind of shown that teams are only really going to be interested in you if you have some sort of previous professional gameplay out there for them to watch, whether it be VODs from scrims that are very recently or, you know, a whole professional season before. So as far as LCS teams or LEC teams, I don't really think Champions Queue will change much in terms of their scouting, but for academy and amateur teams, I think it will.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. The one thing I was wondering was what you thought about all the teams right now, like Cloud9 and TSM, and I guess to a certain extent TL, moving towards out of region players and imports. And if you thought going, especially with Cloud9 and TSM going so young, do you think that that's an area that LCS is going to keep pouring into, is the amateur scenes of other regions?
I'm not sure. I do think it's an interesting look for TSM specifically. I know C9 has some pieces here and there, especially in the bottom lane, but they're not necessarily taking so much of a full-on approach, I think, because, well, I guess it's two members either way. Same with TSM, but yeah. It's interesting. I can't say if I necessarily agree with it or if I think it will stay because I don't have much perspective on it. They had a whole like combine or boot camp out in Korea. They said that that's how they vetted these people for the positions and stuff. So I feel like I'd have to be a part of that to give a real opinion on it, so to say. But I'm very interested. Like I think this is by far the most hype I've ever been to like sit down and watch a year of LCS. Given all the storylines, like you said with TL, I think the roster is obviously exceptional individual talent-wise. I think they're stacked to the roof, and I'm extremely excited as a fan of League of Legends to just sit back and be able to watch all these games. And on a really personal level, I'm super excited to strategize against these extremely elite level players and, you know, try to figure out how I can help my team beat them in draft and things of that nature.
Yeah.
When you're prepping for like these early matches, whether it's lock-in or spring, is it a lot more focus on what you can just do as a team yourself, or are you still checking those VODs, especially for the players coming over from TSM and Cloud9 that we've never seen play in the LCS, or even if they're, you know, I forget who it is on TSM, but basically coming from like the level below their D League. When there's not much footage available, are you still trying to scour as much as you can there, or is it more just do what we can for the time being, find our identity, and go from there?
Especially early in the season, it's very much so the find your own identity and push forward with that. A lot of prep comes just by, you know, having the information out there via scrimming them or playing, you know, seeing them play games in LCS. So things become more predictable as time goes on, and that's why flexibility is such an important part of being a team in LCS, because the longevity of the season kind of does play against being a one trick, or only being able to play one strategy, that kind of stuff. So definitely early in the season, just going to be mainly focused on ourselves and trying to find our own identity as 5. But given that everybody has, a public solo queue account, it's kind of easy to kind of see what everybody's, feeling like they're going to play, or what style people are kind of edging towards. So there is still like a possibility to, track somebody's, whereabouts in the solo queue and stuff like that, see what they're playing.
I can't imagine it hurts either when the coach that they're learning off for jungle is the same guy who was willing to pull out 11 different champions during a single split.
Yes.
There's no such thing
Yeah.
as a one trick once you get to that point.
No, it was really funny when initially when I joined Immortals. It was a few weeks after I had just played against them on stage and beat them. So we were just, that was one of the things I had to review. One of my first assignments given to me when I was trying out for the position was give feedback on Immortals versus Dignitas, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna give them feedback on how they should have played against me like a few days ago. But it was very funny. I mean, I'm close with all the guys. Obviously, we have a bond that is not easy to get if you're just a coach. Obviously, me having such a long history with people like Revenge and Xerxe really helped me get into the team atmosphere very quickly and gain the respect of the players, given that they've all, pretty much everybody that I'm coaching now has competed against me for years. So there's a reason for them to respect me in that sense. So it's just about building on that, I think.
Yeah, and I mean that 11 champions thing absolutely killed me last split. I absolutely loved watching you play Kane, because I love playing Kane. So, especially watching one of like my favorite players pull it out in LCS. But then, also it made me wonder like how important is it? Because you talked about the bond of you being a professional player and really high rank. Does it help a lot as a coach to be at the same skill level as the players?
Yeah, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, everybody's human. People are not always going to be the best version of themselves, and for a lot of people, especially in moments where they make mistakes, historically, people, they tend to deflect stuff. And if you have the individual knowledge to kind of go up and, no, I think you did this incorrectly. You kind of need to go fix this, or I think this could have been played better. It kind of reminds the player like, yeah, in previous teams, maybe, they had a coach that wasn't super knowledgeable. They could get away with stuff like that. It just kind of reaffirms the notion that, yeah, okay, my coach really does know what he's talking about. I should listen to him. And that makes situations where I'm kind of suggesting things to them out of the blue, it just kind of makes them feel more obligated to just take my word for it and just go ahead and try, hey, I think this is good. Oh, okay, I'll give it a shot, something like that. Whereas other people, other situations I've seen in the past, especially with my teammates and other coaches that I've worked with in the past when I was a player, well, I don't really want to play that right now, or, I don't think it's that good, or something like that, where it would be the normal reply to a coach that a player maybe doesn't think the in-game knowledge is that high.
Okay.
I'm curious to know, do you have any specific inspiration when it comes to coaching? Like anybody that you've worked with in the past that you look at like their philosophy or principles around coaching or the way they handle players and use that as like a baseline?
I'd say Gihoto, obviously. I worked with him since I joined Immortals last season. He was a big just an eye opener of how a coach can really genuinely be the leader of the team in esports, because that's the big part. Is I've seen, of course, everybody's seen these amazing coaches in NFL or the NBA or wherever that are coaching people at an elite level, and of course you can apply the same kind of philosophies and thinking patterns of these people, but it's not always going to be an exact one-to-one when transitioning over to esports. So seeing somebody within the very exclusive space of LCS really lead a team kind of opened my eyes to how I could come into myself in this role. Other than Quixote, I did also take a lot from Kane. I worked with Kane for a very brief moment when he was TL's coach back when I actually joined them at the end of a season when I was on CLG for like relegations back in, I forget what year it was, but it was a long time ago. He was an amazing coach, and one of the best experiences I've ever had working with a coach.
Wow, that is awesome. Dang.
I
And
was-
then, oh, wow.
I was just gonna say, I kind of figured the Gyoto answer was coming. I did not expect Kane. That's interesting.
Kane was awesome. A lot of people don't know this, but after I was removed from CLG and I joined TL for that season, or that season end where we played against Phoenix 1 and a bunch of other teams in, at the time, relegations, because I was still in place in LCS. This was going into, I think, the first year of franchising. I was actually on a lot of roster iterations on TL for that time, and it was between me and I think another guy for jungle, and I was held pretty much to the very end before I ended up joining Echo Fox. But me and Kane had a very good relationship, and we worked very well together on that very small time that we were on a team together. And yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about Kane. He's a great guy.
Dang.
Yeah. That is awesome. And then, how do you feel about the current patch and like how everything's looking with bounties and dragons?
I do think it's interesting. I do like the hex gates. The hex gates are very cool. I like that a lot more than I do like the camouflage map. I do think the camouflage map just kind of, it's a win more map. You know, the team who's ahead is gonna just make sure the enemy team can't walk into their side of the jungle ever. You know, if there's a Fed LeBlanc or a Fed enemy jungle that's just missing permanently in any side of the jungle, then of course I think that's a little absurd. I think maybe they could fine tune that a bit, but the hex gates, there's a big thumbs up for me. The soul on, like the zombie soul that gives everybody sign passive, obviously very blatantly overtuned. I'm curious to see how it works in competitive play. Bounties especially, I think that might be the determining factor of like where the Clown Fiestas come from, because I do think higher end play, like maybe in LPL, there will be a lot more bloodbaths going back and forth, given like one guy makes a mistake and a huge bounty goes over or something like that. I am curious just to see how macro evolves, like where you're going to have to make decisions where you wouldn't before, where let's say we kill somebody bottom lane and our mid T1 or top T1 can die, instead of going for their Krugs or Vision or something, we might need to make a decision to instantly base to defend a top T1 because it has a bounty or something like that. So, it's going to be really cool to see. I'm not sure if it's great for the game or not. Like, I'm not sure if it's going to make competitive play more interesting. I'm sure it's going to make it more fun to watch, though.
Did you happen to catch any of the Cape Corp KOI series earlier today?
Yeah, that was all over Twitter. I watched all of it.
I think the first bit that we got to see of the bounties there with the Baron flip was at game 3.
Yeah.
If that is just a small taste of what's to come in terms of games just flipping on their heads because of bounties, is going to be one hell of a split to watch.
Yeah, no, I do think there's a big possibility for games to just go completely back and forth like that, for sure.
One thing that I'm kind of hoping comes from it, I really hope, because at least from just granted, okay, it's 3 games, you know, maybe this is overreacting to everything, but it feels like it's going to be one of those metas where if you truly want to invest all of your resources into early game, you better have 100% confidence that you can close it out in early game, because even the slightest bit of slip up is just going to favor, especially a team like Cloud9, for example, that has made it clear that they want to play a little bit slower, like that will fall right into their lap.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, I do think it's going to be interesting to see where the majority of, I think this is like, this might be the one time where we might see like regions differ in their metas, is that like in their style of play as well, where I think this is a meta where you could take the objective bounties one way or another, where it's like, you could see it as, okay, the game hasn't really changed if we don't make a mistake, because if we don't give them the bounties, then it doesn't really matter, we can still play for early. Or you can see it as, we always have a chance to come back, let's play for late game, you know, something like this. So I could see like LPL as a region having a completely different outlook than maybe EU or North America, for example, whereas and other times everybody just kind of copied by default, I suppose.
Yeah, and like the LPL just uber aggression way of wanting to push like as much as you can really and choke as much out is kind of interesting. If NA is playing, or if Cloud9's way ends up being one of the better ways that works here, how that would clash when you go to play LPL, for sure. But then I was also wondering, for the Carmen Core series, it looked really cool seeing it in a massive stadium like that and kind of moving around, maybe picking different places. Have you ever thought really about LCS possibly trying that one split, maybe a couple times going out and doing a road tour essentially? Do you think that would affect pro play too much though?
I feel like that format in general suits like competitive things in general like better, like just having like the most access to fans as possible. As far as LCS viability of that kind of system goes, I feel like the players would complain too much about the ping variations, like traveling so frequently,
True.
for it to like ever really work out. But I do think it is limiting to a certain degree. If you are a fan and you do want to see LCS, it's only in LA, so you know it is limiting for sure. You're just kind of hoping. Back in the day, you're just kind of hoping that that you coin flip a city near you when they play for an event for finals or whatever. But I'd like to see it happen. I don't think it's likely, but I'd love to see something like that be implemented. I do think like something like a major like a tournament for maybe they switch the way the game's patched or something, and some magic alternative universe where the game is patched like a massive patch every couple months, and then there's just tournaments or something like that. I think a system like that could be way more fun than a season of games, for example. But yeah, like I said, fantasy world.
I'm curious to see what you would think of this thing, because this is an idea we've pitched a few times where obviously, the LCS is going to be resistant to most change overall. So what if we kept the format the same? 9 or, well, I guess it's 8 weeks now, but just metaphorically, 9 weeks of the regular season. You spend 1 week on the road. So you say you travel week 1 and then 2 weeks you're back in the studio. So you have 2 weeks where you're permanently at your base camp, and just 1 weekend every 3 weeks you're on the road. So at most, players are outside of that practice environment no more than 9 days, the entire split, assuming you fly out the morning of. Do you think, at least from the coaching and player perspective, is that still too much on people, or is that we're just trying to think of any way to get the product in front of more people?
It's definitely not too much for people. I think. I mean, there's not many excuses you can make where it's just like there's a lot of people who do a lot of things that require travel, and we can't just be exempt from that fact because we use a keyboard and mouse to do what we do for a living, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I don't really think it's going to be too much travel. I just think logistically speaking, it's going to be where they have to play is the ping going to be massively different, because that at the end of the day is going to be the main arguing point of players, is they only really care about what their in-game experience is going to be like. So if they can practice where they're having to perform or play, as long as the conditions are met and they have a stable practicing environment, then I'm sure it would be able.
Hey, as long as you come out east, you're closer to Chicago, right? Ping should metaphorically get better.
True.
I'm curious then. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was gonna say, actually, truly, just go to Chicago. Genius.
Yeah.
Really.
So Immortals most notably is geolocating now to the Great Lakes region. Yourself being from Pennsylvania, most of the players not really being from any particular location, and for the most part, geolocation just not being a thing in League of Legends. What's your thoughts on, like, are players and staff as invested in this as obviously management is? Is this something that like you're looking forward to, or is this more like, obviously you guys are more focused on winning at the moment, and this is just kind of a back thought?
Well, for as far as like the LCS teams goes, we know we're not going to be directly impacted by any of the decisions made there, given that the studio is like the LCS is hosted in LA, so we're gonna have to stay there regardless. At the most, I think we'd be able to maybe go do events out there, like an off season or something like that. Maybe something like that would be planned in the future. But I can only really speak for myself in this, right? But I'm personally pretty interested in it, and I'm just curious to see where it goes and how. Me and Jordan had a conversation over on one of the calls we had before I joined, and he kind of talked to me about his vision of it, and I couldn't really perfectly understand, but he kind of just made me feel like it was a really good thing going on. So I'm just, like I said, I'm just curious to see where he takes it, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Can't speak on behalf of Immortals, but I can speak on somebody who is passionate about League of Legends, specifically in New York City. Obviously, we're blessed enough to get locations for Worlds and consistent events here, but even then, people don't realize how many League of Legends fans there are in your local areas, and how little as fans we truly do get to interact with this league and the players and everything involved with it. Like, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you know that at minimum you're going to get 10 games in your home city. You're going to get to see your favorite players, go to events where people think the same, or at least are cheering on the same atmosphere. It's not often outside of finals that you get that. So at least from the fan perspective, any chance that we get to truly be embraced by an LCS org, I must say, just feels nice. Whether it's our region or not, it's like, okay, it at least gives you the pipe dream of like, one day it will get to us, for Paul, at least, in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. One day he'll get a League of Legends team there.
No, yeah, I hear that for sure. I mean, being from Pennsylvania as well, that was my exact experience before I got the opportunity to play in it myself, where I was the kid watching from home, just dreaming like, wow, maybe one day I could actually play as well. So I understand it from a fan perspective. It's definitely something that I hope gets fixed. I want the fans to be there. Even the fans in LA, I'd love for there to be fans every day in the studio. Obviously, given the pandemic and stuff like that, it's not really that possible yet. But I'm all for the fan experience being boosted in any way possible.
Yeah. Well, it is 10:30. I know I only kept you on here for 30 minutes. So Paul, I don't know if you have any final questions to wrap up. I don't want to take too much of your time.
No, I don't want to say anything unless you're willing to stay a little longer. Don't want to make you overstay.
If you got one final question, I'm fine.
Oh, I was just wondering, because you're coaching Xerxe, and he's kind of known for picking like really random stuff, and then you are also known for picking like basically whatever you wanted. Are you two planning up some magical concoction of something that we'll have no idea when we see it coming? Is that the big play this year?
I mean, me and Jaguar haven't really been in much communication in the off season yet. Since I rejoined, I think I've only really spoke with Turtle and Revenge. We had dinner a little while ago, or lunch a little while ago. But me and Xerxe, a lot of people don't know this, but me and Xerxe actually were like kind of just really close. I wouldn't say really close friends, but kind of like informants for each other. When he was in LEC, I was in LCS for a long time. We would just share information, and we'd just message each other and kind of share what info is going on. And he was always the guy that I would message, because he was the one person that I could ask, hey, what champs are you playing? And there was always one thing or two things that I never considered in his pool. And I would always just be like, what? Why would you play that? And then he'd explain it to me. I'd try it. It was always broken. And I had a respect for him, in the respect of, he was just a jungler who really, I could tell, really wanted to master his individual role and go as deep as possible into truly mastering the jungle in its own right. And that was a big part of what I was trying to showcase on Dignitas, where I wanted to let everybody know that there's no draft scenario you can put me in where I'm going to be uncomfortable, and I'm going to prove it by playing a different champ in every single game. I want you to go ahead and ban what I played the game before, and the game before that, and the game before that. And
Yes.
it's not going to matter, because there's too many champs in this game. And I think as a professional, you should be striving to master your craft. And if you cannot play every champion in your role, then what are you doing?
Yep. That is
And if
why
you're
you're my
not-
favorite jungler.
If you're not
Yes.
able to and you're not striving to, what's the point if you're calling yourself a professional? That's genuinely how I thought about it my entire career,
Yes.
and that's why I pushed myself to play everything.
You would have
is
serviced
an
really,
awesome
really
answer.
well as a bot laner in 2018. I'm just saying.
Oh, in Funnel Meta? No, Funnel Meta, if you guys saw the VODs on Echo Fox during Funnel Meta, I played everything. There were games where I was the Smite Zaya, I was the Smite Kaisa. On stage I was the Alistar and the
go.
Braum because it ended up being that the other members of the team weren't as flexible. So OpTic, in the end of the day, he could only be the AD carry, so we had to put him on the AD carry. Adrian, for example, he was only capable of playing the support, so we had to put him on the support. But there were times where, at the time when Huni was playing jungle, Huni was playing bot lane, I was playing top, I was playing bottom with Phoenix, I was the AD carry in the funnel at some points. Like, I got to have a lot of fun during that time. I really wish Funnel Meta stayed around because that would have been, Echo Fox would have probably never broken up then. We were by far the best funnel team in North America.
2018 Echo Fox was the relief for my pain that was being an OpTic fan back then, because we had Zig, Lemonation, Arrow, PoE, and I think Acadian at the time.
Oh
So
yeah,
and
that
we were
roster.
oh yeah, we were bad. Like
Yeah, that was bad.
two out of 5 players retired after that split. Meanwhile, you guys were over here popping off in third wearing hockey jerseys in Miami. I was like, I freaking love
Yeah.
this.
No, Echo Fox, that year was genuinely still probably one of, if not the best experience I had in esports as a player. I think there was just something about that team that we just really clicked. I think everybody, it's kind of rare in esports because everybody, I feel like so many esports players are so young, they don't really know, they don't really have that understanding. This is what I want to do. Like, this is my moment. You know what I mean? Like, whereas like an NBA player who came right out of high school, for example, he knows when he goes to the league, this is his time where he's got to really show out and do everything possible. I don't think pro league players, they have that understanding because they all just think, yeah, if this goes bad at the end of the day, I can just go do something else, or I'll just go back to school or whatever. Like, this isn't the end all be all for them. And I won't say that's for a majority, just for some players. But I do think it's just a super important factor to have as a player. Like, I just think if you're going to take yourself seriously as a professional and as a competitor, you need to be doing everything in your power to be pushing yourself to the next level. And I think that is most important.
Yes.
I will say, I think part of that does fall back on us as the fans as well. Like, as much as there is an element of making sure that the players feel the prestige in it, we as fans also have to make sure it's valued enough so that the players see that as well. Can't come out here shitting on the LCS consistently and trying to devalue the product. Well, then what happens when the players look at it? Same thing.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a big determining factor of a lot of players. I mean, I think that's a big reason why you don't see a lot of North American players, a lot of North American LCS players streaming, for example. There's probably like a handful of LCS players who consistently stream and are active with the community in general, because a lot of the community just shits on LCS players whenever possible at any given junction. If you are a competitor in NA or you're from North America, then there's a high chance in a league capacity you're going to get flamed or disrespected in some regard, if you're on the competitive side of things. So
Yeah.
it's a hard knock life for some people, but at the end of the day, somebody's got to live it, I guess.
That's true.
That is true.
Dang. This is like the greatest thing I've ever heard. You going on that? Oh man. When you were the jungler I wanted, I'm a huge TSM fan. I was since like 2013. You were the jungler I wanted on them like the whole time I watched them. And when you finally got there, I was so amped.
Yeah, that was a big. That's probably.
I know.
Well,
I'm
honestly,
sorry.
my bigger regret was not joining TSM when I had my first opportunity to in 2016. Because if I joined that roster, we would have been insane for sure.
Dude,
Like,
when I heard that rumor, I was putting in like discords and stuff to people. I was telling them, "Oh, you all can just like suck it." I was like, "This is the best team ever made." And
no,
then
in hindsight, looking at it, yeah, that would have been the best North American roster probably ever if I joined. But when I think about my perspective at the time of making that decision, It was a no-brainer. Of course, I'm picking Piglet over Doublelift at that exact time.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm picking Piglet over Doublelift.
Yes.
And it's a mistake in hindsight. I will always admit that. But at
Yeah.
that time, being 17-year-old myself, I mean, I couldn't have made a different choice. I think.
I didn't. I don't blame you for that. I feel like you made
yeah.
like the choice
Just-
that made
yeah.
sense at the time.
It was just like I had spent a year on TLA before I even played that split on TL, and
Yep.
I knew, as the kid who got suspended in his very first split of ever playing, I knew I made mistakes. You know, I knew it was my fault. End of the day, I could have done better. So it wasn't right for me at that point to put blame on anybody other than myself and just put my head down and keep trying to work hard. But you know, things work out for their own reasons. But yeah,
True.
that was my bigger. Looking at my career completely in hindsight, that was probably the one decision I should have made earlier.
Hindsight's 2020 though.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't mean it like that. Sorry. I'm
No,
always
no,
like,
all good.
I was saying like once you joined for that one split, I was super excited that whole time.
Oh
I
no,
didn't care what
I
anybody said.
still had a great time on that roster. I mean, it was super fun playing with BB and Bjergsen was like a dream come true still.
Oh, I have a Broken Blade
had a
Worlds
lot of-
jersey from the 06 run.
Now, BB's up there in terms of my favorite teammates all time. He was just a great guy to be around in and out of games. Really, really hilarious. Genuinely funny dude.
Bobby
Oh.
Schmurda.
Off the wall question then, since obviously you know you're gonna predict Immortals to win the LCS. Who's your favorite to win LEC then?
Favorite to win LEC? Most likely, I think Fnatic's roster is absolutely insane, and I think they have the least chance to not be great, given the fact that they are retaining Upset and Hilly, who are undeniably the best bot lane in the region, as well as they got, in my opinion, the best member of Mad Lions and Humanoid, and then they also got the best member of Misfits and Razork, and then they also got a long-standing underdog of the best G2 in Wonder. So I think, in my opinion, I think they got a huge steal in off season in all three of their roles. I won't speak on if they've. I mean, I think obviously they've upgraded in top lane, and I was a huge fan of Bwipo in the jungle, so I won't say it was an upgrade there. I think that was at least a side grade. Bwipo was at least, if not number one, number two jungle for me last year in LEC.
Agreed.
But Fnatic's my pick for winning LEC this split.
Interesting.
I don't have much faith in Perks kind of swapping over and just dominating. I do think the North American mid laners were a ton weaker.
I've been getting so much shit for saying that. Thank God somebody else said it besides me.
Well, what about
Well, I think
Alfari,
Perks was extremely dominant for an extremely long time. Don't get me wrong, in G2. But I do think that after he swapped to AD carry, since swapping back to mid, he's been a bit weaker as a mid laner. And I do think his most dominant form came as an AD carried player. I do think he was the peak of Perks, in my opinion, came in the Umayan era where he was an AD carry. So, in my opinion, I was the biggest fan of Perks when he was an AD carry. I thought he would stay there forever, to be honest.
I forget who was. Yeah, it was our friend Zebra that asked us a question like 2-3 weeks ago. If you had to put together your 3 ideal LCS rosters with any player following normal import rules, I think we all agreed that we would keep Perks in one of the 3 rosters, but as an ADC. Like, people really undervalue how much impact he had on that 2019 G2 roster as an ADC.
It was also a very specific meta because he was the most dominant. He was the most dominant Kai'Sa and Xayah player, and Ezreal. Like those 3, he was extremely proficient on, and they were the best AD carries in the meta. So like where Perks would fall into a category if he has to play other AD carries, where like if Kallista's the best AD carry or Jhin or Draven comes up, something like this, I'm sure he'd be able to apply himself and learn, but he'd have to prove that he learned these champs, you know, sometime along the way, given he didn't main AD carry forever. But in the small amount of time in that one season where he did apply himself and try to learn, he was undeniably the best on his individual champs, even at the world's level, which is extremely impressive.
And then we all got disappointed with the 0-3 final.
Yeah.
Still
Tragic.
stings.
Sometimes you run out of gas. It's okay.
Yeah.
They were right at
Yeah.
the finish line, and it was they ran out of gas. That's what they get for They milked all their abuse of Pyke on MSI. If they really wanted to win Worlds, they should have lost MSI and hid the Pyke.
You got to go for the Grand Slam though. You can't pass
That's
up
true.
that
No,
chance.
That's true.
Because
Well,
nobody's
they
ever
kept
completed the
Pyke
Grand Slam, right?
if they kept Pyke a secret, it was legit. I didn't know, at the time where Pyke was super broken in solo lane. I swear G2 was the only team playing it, but they played it so much and so well that they forced it to get nerfed like immediately.
True.
Because I remember that was the time where I was on OpTic and we were playing it everywhere. Like we would pick Pyke, first pick every lobby. It was so broken we'd put it mid, top, support, sometimes jungle if we needed to. It was too funny.
You would play jungle?
Yeah, Yankos played that season. Yankos played one
that's
Pyke
true.
jungle game, so I tried it out a couple times. I played it in Academy once. That season, but we lost on it, but it was fun.
That's awesome.
That was the name of the game for OpTic Academy. That was just a fun team. That was just the name of the game.
Dude, we freaked we watched. There's probably a solid core of about 20 of us in the OpTic Gaming Discord that watched every Academy and LCS game religiously, and watching some of those Academy games was hilarious. Some of the off-the-wall picks were great.
You know, we had some mad scientists in the lab on OpTic Academy, man. Like, and we didn't have that. Like the thing about it is, most teams you'll have that one guy that's like, nah. Let's pick like Orianna, Azir. Let's just scale up. Let's chill. But everybody on that team was a little psycho. They're just like, anybody brings up any bad idea, and everyone's like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's try that. And then we just waste the whole scrim day of Scarlet's playing Pantheon Talia with Gate. Neo's playing Jarvan jungle, and I'm playing Yasuo mid. And we actually sat there for a whole day playing with these roles, and it was like, just because our mid and our support would go home at the end of the day and play duo queue as Talia Pantheon, and then they just came in one day of scrims the day after, like, can we try this? Like, can we just go bottom? Because we're running solo queue with this. We're like, oh, yeah, sure. It's too troll. Way too troll. But
it's incredible.
Just fun. I mean, it's just a fun experience for sure. But yeah, I mean, looking back at that experience as a coach, I mean, I would never let that happen if I was a coach. But I'm glad I got to have fun given the situation, you know.
I will say on behalf of those of us that truly were supportive of the Green Wall, sorry for the 95% that were absolute shit to you guys, because we saw the amount of backlash that you guys got, and the Green Wall is not. When they turn on you, they turn on you hard, and that got ugly. No,
I mean, it's a lively community to say the least. I mean, they're passionate fans. They're passionate fans. I'll give them credit where it's due. I mean, it was easy for me to kind of ignore it because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't a member of the LCS team. I wasn't like in the spotlight, so to say. And the few times that I did play that split, I was popping off in LCS. Like that was the time I played Jace jungle in LCS, and I really smurfed. And I was gonna say
you had a winning record on the starting LCS team.
I think I won it. I think I won majority of the games I played on stage. I played Camille. I played I think it was like Camille, Lee Sin, and Jace. Yeah, something like that.
Started off 3-1, and 3 of us immediately booked our tickets to LCS finals the second you were topping the LCS for those 2 weeks. Yeah,
I mean it was fun, but at the real reason behind me even playing at that time over Medias was just because Arrow at the time had visa issues, and Neo was just too uncomfortable playing in the game without me, voice calming everything for him. Because we had a system, I've always kind of been like this with my AD carries, where I'll overcom for him because Piglet was a little. He's just an emotional guy. So when Piglet's game would go bad, I'd have to tell him, "Hey man, like let's pick it up, bro. Like let's go here, go do this." You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, that's how I kind of picked up for all my AD carries. So I would always kind of baby him to a certain degree and kind of help him out, because AD carries always, in my experience, been the role where you know, they're the team baby at the end of the day. They lane with support. They get told what to do for the most part. There are outliers like Doublelift and Uzi, for example. Like we all know the famous clip where Uzi shouts out, "This guy doesn't have QSS," and then his team engages on him. They win MSI. And Doublelift has so many iconic moments of shot calling that are documented. So there are outliers, but for the most part, my experience, 80 carries are the silent followers of the support and the overall team leader. And Neo was that to a T. Neo was this English second language Vietnamese kid who was super, super uncomfortable, and I think OpTic was his first real chance at playing pro. I think it was his very ever first team in general, so he didn't really know what to do or say. And when he, you know, think about the perspective of a kid who's playing his first ever academy job, he then gets told, hey, you actually got to go play LCS completely raw with no scrims whatsoever. Oh, and by the way, the guy that you laned with for all of your academy scrims, we're not putting him in with you. You got to go play with a different guy too. So he was super uncomfortable, and he was just like, I don't think I'm going to play well unless we put in Austin and Josh. So me and Gate had to get put in LCS so we could make him feel nice and comfy.
And you know what? It won. And that's the important part.
No, but Neo did pop off his very first game of LCS. He was smurfing. His Ezreal was clean. And Neo's a beast, though. I hope he's got a long career ahead of him. Neo's the kind of guy, he's got the talent level where he will have a career if he wants to. As long as he really works hard, he's going to have it forever. Like, there's no doubting it. Because there's no doubt in my mind that he can top what he did in his first year of LCS. There's no doubt in my mind. From working with him for so long, I know he's got the potential to push way past that. It's just about how hard he works.
Quick, I guess, final wrap-up question then. Speaking of potential, is North America hitting semifinals this year a pipe dream or a reality like Alice is preaching?
I'd say it's more likely than ever before, just given the status of the TL roster. Like, I think if you said these 5 would be together regardless of region, they'd probably end up semifinals worlds on most people's list. From the perspective of only Immortals, I'd say I'd say our goal is worlds. I wouldn't say deep into the tournament we're really thinking about it. That's more of like I'd say that's more of like an in the moment thing. But I think it's possible, of course. From the players that I've got, I'm confident in R5. There's no doubt that on an individual level, I don't think it's hard to feel overwhelmed on an individual level when watching League after you've played it competitively for so long. So I've always got confidence in my guys that they can, from the perspective of somebody who's played pro for so long, when I watch extremely good pro players, I can always envision myself being able to hit the keys and move my mouse in the same way. So I feel like my players think the same way. And I feel like if that simple fact of like self-confidence is present, then, we can work hard and we can figure out how to play the game on the patch better than somebody in China or Korea. I don't really think that there's too much to it other than that. Like, the game is going to change a lot before we play at Worlds, so it's all about how we're going to adaptation is a very big part of playing League on a competitive level because the game changes so much.
Well, that's all I needed to hear to huff hopium even more. That's good enough for me.
Oh no.
Oh yes, Paul, you better be ready. It's coming in strong. I'm painting my chest red, white, and blue and showing up every day in New York hype like that.
Unironically puts every LCS team getting out of groups.
You're goddamn right. And the day that I don't is the day I lose faith in LCS. I don't care if it's delusional or not.
Oh dear.
Not my fault.
That's a real fan.
True, he is. He's ride or die to the bitter end.
It has some really low lows, let me tell you what. But it makes those highs even better.
He was the one, though, who talked me through it when I got up at 4 a.m. to watch TSM finish off the 0-6.
Oh, man.
Hey, I talked to you.
With my broken blade jersey.
I stayed up every night, too.
Yep.
I watched it. I saw this. I saw the 10-man sleep or the 9-man sleep happen
It was
live.
so bad.
I watched that. Oh,
It
I
was
saw that
so
live.
bad.
How much did that single play piss you off as a jungler? I can't even imagine.
Oh, I could imagine it. It was off. It was fast. It's one of those things that's fascinating. It's like hard to watch, but you can't look away.
Yeah.
So it's like I saw it and I was like, I remember in the moment I reacted super positively because Ming smurfed. Like he made a huge play. I was like, holy shit, insane sleep. I like stood up out of my chair, started staring at the screen, and then nobody followed. I was like, what the is going on? Like,
Yeah.
and then everybody knows what happened after that. It's just sadness from there. But yeah.
Yeah. That was like just
To me, at the very least, it was cool because we got to see a real NA talent, go and show himself. Ming really did go and show that he can play at that level. I do think he showed in his first Worlds. He's a world-class player there's no denying it, in my opinion. So that was at least a good takeaway for me. I was proud of him. As somebody who
Broken played it too.
Yeah, BB was in my opinion, BB was always at the top of at least NA top laners when he was in NA. And I'm happy that he showed up and he showed up when he was on Schalke EU and got on G2. I think that's super cool for his storyline.
Yeah. I think people are
for both LEC. Yeah, for both LEC and LCS, I think the storylines are dope, and I can't wait to watch. There's just so many cool games. So much storyline. I mean, LPL as well with Uzi coming back and everything too. It's way too cool. League right now is sick.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's safe to say this should be League's biggest year by a wide margin. Even if, player base doesn't necessarily increase. Like, viewership is still continuing to trend upwards. And
I'd hope so. A lot of fan favorites are coming back right now. As far as Xerxe and Uzi returning to their respective leagues, I think it's super cool. Perks going back to EU, Alphari going back to EU. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. The Reckless thing was like the most weird, I'd say. That was all in this off season.
Yeah.
But still, I still thought that move was cool though, because it's interesting to see like how ERL is going to develop now that they've got this huge name that's going to hopefully bring a lot more viewership, right? So that storyline's also pretty cool to follow.
435K.
A wild card spot. Not this year, but possibly next year. Some of these smaller leagues that, even though they're feeder leagues, if they can try to get one.
I doubt Riot would. There's no way.
Would add a lot of legitimacy to the league, to their league, though.
Yeah, it's just the viewership they pull to not be considered wild card blows me away. Because they did hit what, 400K today, 500.
I think 437 was like the highest peak. 437. If I'm not mistaken.
That's a lot for a region that can't even compete for Worlds.
I think Reddit said that was 135K higher than LCS finals in summer.
Oh yeah, there was a tweet that said it would be the third highest viewed series in LEC playoffs.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It would not shock me at all if both of those teams get included in LEC expansion next year, at all. Like those two, because
that's probably more
the drop off though between those two teams and everybody else in the ERLs. While ERLs still obviously get a large amount of viewership, like those two are clear outliers relative to everybody else.
Good point.
It would take like their whole league signing extremely high-end players like Reckless, I guess, to get that kind of viewership consistently.
Yeah. But I don't want to keep you on much longer, and I know the wife's also signaling for me to wrap it up here soon, so I'm gonna get in trouble. But thank you so much for coming on, man. Any final shout-outs you want to give?
No, shout out to Immortals, shout out to Jordan, all the Immortals fans. Thank you guys for all the support, and here's to another great year.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Really
Seriously.
cool getting to meet you.
Thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
You too. Okay, Paul.
What a cool guy.
I got like 5 minutes before Emily gets really mad at me to wrap.
Okay, go.
Correction, I have like now, so we're gonna have to do closing thoughts, and then next week.
It's fine, David, but don't
What?
say 10:30 when it's 11.
I said he'd be on until 10:30, but she ended up staying on until 10:50, which is 10:59, which was amazing. He stayed on for a full hour.
Paul? You see the shit I deal with, Paul? This?
What? Oh,
What is
mean,
that?
we were technically like
What is that?
kind
saying
of late to our own party.
We were
yeah.
technically kind of late to our own party.
And he still gave us
Yeah,
extra
like,
time.
what, 2 minutes?
About
Not
3.
a half hour.
About 3.
But I'm
What?
saying he gave us extra time.
He
That's
did. He did
crazy.
give us extra time.
And that's because David
pretty
forgot. No, I know, that's nice. I'm not mad about that.
Now,
That's because David
not
forgot
enough time
that
to
we
talk
had
about
shows
it.
night.
But those ERL numbers, next podcast, we're gonna have to talk about.
No, that's
kinda
gonna have to be a
gross.
serious conversation because the numbers that they're
Yeah.
pulling and the stadium support that they have, that's too much for the LEC to ignore. But
Yeah.
that'll be an episode in it because next week we leave to go back to Pennsylvania on
Okay.
Wednesday the 22nd, so we'll have to do it either Monday or Tuesday. But
Sounds good.
want to know your thoughts now that Dardoch is pieced out. What were your thoughts on the interview?
Oh, bro, he's like so cool and relaxed and chill and not at all what they like try to call him, like this toxic guy. It sounded like he had such a genuine and happy times. And you would think from hearing from the outside that everything was sad for him.
I was shocked by. He was still like he's very honest with everything, but just
Oh, yeah.
so sincere with it, and it's just like I could tell, like, kind of going into it, like, we very much like kept it on like the Immortals coaching topic for like a good 25 minutes before like really expanding
Yep.
outward, but like he just rolled with everything so well.
Yeah. He's impressed me with how just like genuinely like honest he was. I mean, some of it was just shocking, like when he was like sitting there just talking about exactly how the comms went for OpTic. I was like, oh, okay. I wanted to ask him about. I didn't want to slide it in because I didn't know if it'd be weird or not. But well, not weird, but just too much to ask. But I was gonna be like, oh well, Dom did say like Piglet is basically like the most rude person alive, and this man's sitting here going like, I had to talk Piglet through everything. So I was gonna be like, was Piglet chill to you or not? Because Dom hated Piglet. from what I heard.
Yeah, Dom is very outspoken against Piglet. That is
Yeah,
for certain.
and Piglet's now a coach, so I was gonna ask him about that, but
Wait, who's
I
he
don't-
coaching now?
SKT's B team.
Oh,
something.
okay, yeah.
Positional. He's positional though. But it's like,
Get down from there right now.
I don't know, that would be very interesting. I mean, he just surprised me though, how just relaxed he is. He's like so relaxing and all that and nice. It was just really surprising because I mean, the way people push him off is that he's just super blunt and tough, but he honestly wasn't that blunt, it felt like. And he wasn't saying things that were rude.
To be fair and to be, brutally honest with it, we also are just interviewing, like,
Sure,
in the off season.
Sure.
Like they're,
good point.
your and my personality would both change as well if we're dealing with losses in the regular season and trying to figure out where we're gonna go, job security and everything else like that. Like I'm not denying that probably doesn't change it,
Yeah.
to a certain extent, but at least just talking to him, great.
That's true. I did like how he said like C9 basically has knowns, and then he was like, "Oh, never mind. They both have like these rando kids. They have randos bot, and TSM got randos in support." And I was like, "Yeah," because that's kind of what I was wondering how people thought about that, because like it's very interesting the way that those two teams just went with kind of unknowns, and then you have a lot of rosters like shelling out to do everything right now. And but inside of that, you still have 100 Thieves, I guess, with an unknown. And
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, you have that floor of the known.
oh, for
The
sure.
only unknown is the upside. The
That's
known
true.
is the downside already.
That's a good point.
I
And the only one I
love
can
that.
think of as well is EG. EG
Yeah.
is so unknown.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
what were we gonna say? Sorry.
I was just gonna say I love that he's optimistic to a certain extent on the changes.
Oh,
Like I know he didn't really lay into the bounties as much as other people have, but at least the thing that I'm happy that he said, which I feel like is something that I've been seeing as a viewer and not a player, is that these bounties make it incredibly entertaining. regardless of whether they're fair and balanced, like the most fair and balanced stuff is not always the most fun. Some of the most fun things in the game can be the more broken stuff. So it's like the fact that even he was saying that the bounties can make it entertaining regardless of their fairness or not. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and it's weird though because it does make it better for you to sit back and play slow, but at the same time, it does almost force like it. There's a certain handicap it almost sets on an aggressive team that I feel like it's making aggressive teams smoother in a way, and that kind of like force of smoothness is kind of beautiful
Yeah.
in a way because you're getting just like these teams that want to go aggro 24/7, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? There's a bounty. What if we just come back and kill them and have a reset?
Yeah.
It's like okay.
Like I think a lot of people are gonna fall into the trap of, oh well, we just have to pick late game and scale, and then everybody's gonna pick that.
Yeah.
But you're gonna open up these glaring weaknesses in the early game that, you know, short teams like Dignitas and those at the bottom of the LCS won't be able to capitalize on. But if you pick a late game scaling comp against Team Liquid or 100 Thieves and they just pick very early game and smash you all the way through, you're just opening up too many holes. Yeah, the comeback mechanic is there, but it's not going to matter, like you said, if they're smooth with it.
Yep. And that's what we gotta hope to see. That and his stuff about TSM was dope. Loved hearing him just prop up BB. Liked that. What else? I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just said a lot of stuff. I mean, his hopium for you absolutely.
Oh,
killed me.
I
And
know.
him saying he'd love to do a tour. The tour one got me excited.
Yeah.
Like, he said he's cool with it, but he thinks people would complain. That got me amped because, like, that means there's at least thought somewhere in the league that people are considering it, and I just want to see people give it some thought. Doubt it would ever pass, but
I think it could. Like, he gave me enough evidence to believe that there's such minimal impact on players if you're only traveling once every 3 weeks. Like, the majority of the problems are on, like, the production and travel crew to make sure that everything is set up on a consistent basis. The players just have to fly in on a Friday morning, do a tech test to make sure everything's okay, or you fly in Thursday night, you know, scrim Friday morning, and then you're only playing games on Saturday and Sunday now with the schedule.
Yeah, and is the tournament realm server not movable?
I don't know, but
Mine
nevertheless, no matter where you go, you're closer to Chicago. So it's a solo queue becomes more
Yeah.
and more relevant the further east you go.
I was just more meaning like.
Oh yeah, like practicing on
the
like
way
six
some
the
of them
six
made it
ping
sound like-
scrim.
Yeah, no, I mean for game days. Like the way they made it sound was like, oh, we can't like the game ping might be different. And at first I was like, oh well, if your ping is that much worse, the only argument I can think of for them having ping legitimately wouldn't be scrims because you're only leaving for like 3 days, maybe a week max, like maybe 3 or 4 days, right? That's it for those games, those 2 days a week, and they're already moving tournament realm for finals and all stuff like that to keep the ping at a consistent 8 or whatever it is, 2 or 0, I don't know, but they're already moving it, so why can't they just move the tournament realm to where they're going like they always do, and then teams can practice on that night before games if they really dig that. A couple teams can go early, and then they're playing on the same ping anyways. The only thing that's changing is solo queue and maybe super server ping for a day or two max.
Yeah, but you're playing what, 2 days on regular solo
Yeah.
queue that you would normally like.
Yeah,
You're
that's
already
what I'm
playing
saying.
LCS
It's only
games
2
in
days.
general, so it's like, does it really matter all that much? Like,
'Cause what's your ping?
my ping's 25 in New York.
Oh, yeah, that's my ping from Indy's like 10 on a if I have my friend's internet, 20 on mine because
Yeah.
Like-
Now, granted, if you go down to Florida, I'd imagine it's still pretty bad because you're getting pretty far away down there. But
true, but Chicago's not like
no,
I mean, what? Just pick Atlanta then. Do Atlanta.
shit, you could do Atlanta, New York, Chicago, Charlotte. You could pick some
Yeah.
random spot in Virginia. I mean, you can go out to Boston. You can go to Indy.
Yeah.
Like, you can just start doing the NFL tour. Like, just
You can
go
do
to every.
Texas and just use Cali.
You could use three. You could pick 3 different spots in Texas. Like, literally, just have a
Yeah.
Texas split of just visiting a different spot in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get why they haven't even tried this because I mean, dude, that well, we can't do it now, but that ERL thing, like,
I
come on.
know.
You're telling me LCS can't do that?
That just made me so excited
Did
to
you
have
get
fans back.
goosebumps?
Yeah.
I got
Oh,
goosebumps
I got
from the
chills.
crowd.
Chills throughout my entire body, listening to the
Yeah.
Spanish cast and just hearing the crowd.
Yep.
It was
I
insane.
just felt so at home
But
watching that.
I hate to wrap it
Something
up,
about
but I do gotta. I literally ran back from a Broadway show to get to this, so I have not. So I have not talked to Emily about the Broadway show itself, and I know she's gonna pop, like if I don't, because we had
okay,
to
my
talk.
bad.
It was my send off for today is gonna be this. If you're in New York City and you get the chance to go see To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway, go see it. I know you read the book in high school. We all did if you're from the U.S. It is worth seeing the show. Like 20 times over, it is worth seeing the show.
Well, and don't forget, Love You Speaker.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. Praise you. Thank you, Dardoch. That was legitimately a jungler that I had been begging to be on TSM for how long? Like when I met
Years.
you, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the day I met you, I had been talking about Dardoch to TSM.
And one time you actually got it. It just didn't unfortunately work out.
It was just not what I wanted to see. I didn't know how to bring that up to him without it being pressing.
Nah.
So I just threw it
I mean,
out there
hey,
and let it
I brought up OpTic by just openly shitting on OpTic. That's the easy way to do it. So. But
I loved how like he's a very good speaker too. But
he is. But
have a good one.
thank you everybody for tuning in. We will catch you next week, probably on Monday or Tuesday. I will let everybody know on Twitter and TikTok. Adios and have a good one, guys.
Speaker.
Alright, stream is ended.
Alright, TSM doesn't